We've got John Maynard Keynes, Rudyard Kipling, Galsworthy, and what the electrical press calls impractical aesthetes.
I always tend to compare us with Germany. I think the difference is that they've tended to believe that new features, if properly planned, can enhance the landscape, whereas we, since the days of the first railways, have tended to believe that they must take away from the quality of landscape.
But such British qualms would be swept aside. Herbert Morrison, who was Minister of Transport when the Labour government came in, was ruthless.
Morrison said, this is a national enterprise, it must be completed, and anybody who stands in the way will be, frankly, anti-patriotic.
Some minor concessions were made to protesters. But ultimately, nothing would stop the grid stretching across the nation.
I've had one or two people these days on about the unsightly lines and towers. And I say, well, look, I do not agree with you, because you go and you see the Great Wall of China, and I'd look on these pylons when I see them on that terrain against wind, weather, today, and I saw them going up, and I saw the human effort that went into them. The terrain was against you, and the weather was against you. It was quite inhospitable. The worst was the Korearic Pass. I've seen me sometimes standing and leaning against the wind and keeping myself leaning and leaning and leaning to see when, and it just held me up. You just could lean right into it. So I take the hat off every time I see them, because I realise what was done there, and it's really admirable.
They seem to be coming amongst us, strung together by these high-tension cables, but they're linked. They're on a kind of, they're a chain gang, if you like, of colossal labourers who are endlessly producing more power and producing more energy to take us forward.
Forward to the electric future. By the spring of 1933, the original grid was almost finished. But were enough people in Britain ready for this brave new world?
Electric kettles. Who wants ready-made comfort anyway? I press the button and it happens sort of life. You had no electricity in your day, and by George, I envy you.
I think it'd be natural that people would be slightly afraid of electricity to start with, because it was a new thing. You didn't light it, you didn't turn it down or up, it was just there and then it was not there.
I mean, even today, you know, sometimes you pull a plug out quickly and you see a flash of electricity at home, and you suddenly become aware of this almighty power coming into your home.
Unless the British could be persuaded to give up their reliance on familiar gas and coal, the grid would be a very expensive white elephant. The electricity industry went on a charm offensive.
Electricity brings to you machines which turn drudgery to delight.
Blimey, they're always up to time, ain't they?
Cooking's just become a matter of pressing the right button. Look here.
All the propaganda promises a transformed world, a transformed universe. There is a quasi-religious aspect to it.
To convert the British, films contrasted the labour and dirt of the Industrial Revolution with the cleansing, liberating electrical revolution.
So there is a very strong millenarian sense in the electrical industry. This is actually a moral crusade.
So, with the coming of mobile power through the length and breadth of the land, the heavy smoke clouds of the past can be dissipated forever. But a plan for power is only part of a greater plan to make Britain a land designed for living, to make a new age possible.
The last pylon of 26,000 went up in the New Forest in September 1933. The grid was completed ahead of schedule and on budget. Regions across the country plugged in and switched on.
So the grid was built, and in no time at all, consumption of electricity in the country, well, people were having electricity who'd never had it before. People, individuals, and of course, industries.
The grid came good on its promise. The price of electricity fell, and current flowed from power stations to substations, through local distribution networks, and into our homes.
Well, the property we're working on at the moment, this is a 3-bedroom detached property, and it consists of over 350 light fittings. I think it's about 390 light fittings throughout the house, and probably 150 double sockets.
When I first started work, which was 1963, as an apprentice electrician, the property would have, say, 10 lighting points, 10 power points, cooker point and an immersion heater point, and that would be it. And comparing what we're doing now is quite unbelievable.
The first switch most homes flicked was the light switch.
Well, the brightness, for a start. Of course, look at the dust. Look, well, did he repaint? You know?
People did actually have to learn how to use electric light in the home. The early electric lighting would have been a very bright, bare bulb, perhaps in the middle of the room. And that's not very flattering, and it's quite hard on the eyes. So there are books and pamphlets published on how to light your home.
Never use naked lamps. They offend the artistic sense and cause glare painful to the eyes and wasteful of light.
A bare pendant without a shade on makes you think, truth. Can we not even afford a shade? Just a bare bulb looks a bit harsh. It's all right in a chicken shed, but in somebody's property, it's not very pretty, is it? No.
I often think sometimes if I walk home at night along a street when dusk is falling, you look up sometimes at sort of first floor windows and you see, before people draw their curtains, rooms that you long to be invited into, and they have that warm light. And then you see rooms and you think, oh, that really looks quite grim, I hope I never end up in there. And that's all really to do with lighting.
Today, lighting is an art as well as a science.
Decorative lighting, which are like chandeliers, wall lighting.
The table lamps.
LED lighting.
The ceiling light.
Low energy lighting as regards fluorescence tubes and things like that.
This past few years, I have quite liked uplighters.
I've got lights that come out from under my bath.
These are going to be sunk in the wall. They, I think, are going to be green, and they shine over the steps to give a lovely effect up the stairs.
I know my wife saw pictures of light fittings going up the stairs, and she says, oh, we'll have some of those. And I know what's involved in fitting them, so consequently we've not got them.
But I think the most important thing is to plan your room.
This is the master bedroom.
I always think of layering lights into a room, and that each layer would do a different function.
If you're going to bed and you want to read, you put all the lights on, so you've got a nice reading light. But if you want to go to bed and you want a bit more romantic, you can put just a few on, depending on how you feel.
I mean, years ago, everybody stuck a fluorescent light in the kitchen. And to my mind, that was a brilliant light because you could see exactly what you were doing. Well, it's too harsh now, and you know, everybody's having the downlighters, which is fine for us. I mean, yeah, the more the merrier.
Today, 20% of Britain's electricity is used in lighting. Our constellations are on the ground as much as in the sky. To provide cheap power to all these homes, a new breed of power station was required.
Working at Battersea, another lad and myself thought, we'll get up there and have a look. And we climbed up to the top of the stack. Oh, it's absolutely awe-inspiring, and you get a really chill up your neck when you look down that hole. But then it's worth it, because looking round, oh dear, dear, those beautiful posh flats in Chelsea, the bridges across the river, Big Ben standing there, and the House of Parliament. It certainly was, you know, very impressive. I would do it again. I would.
Today?
Not today, after I've had a sleep.
Now a ruin due for renovation, Battersea is so seared on London's psyche that knocking it down seems inconceivable. But creating an architectural masterpiece wasn't part of the original plan. It was a business opportunity. While the grid itself was run by a public corporation, power stations were still owned by private companies, and they spotted the potential the grid offered.
Battersea was one of the great new stations that the power companies built for the national grid, showing what could be done supplying electricity to a wide area from a large station through the national grid.
But the original plan for Battersea was somewhat different from the one we see today. It was going to be more like a colossal warehouse with 8 chimneys in a line, belching out black smoke. London Power Company started construction in 1929 on the south side of the Thames. Immediately they hit a problem.
There were complaints from the House of Commons, who could see it across the river, and there really was quite a campaign in the Times to stop it.
The individuals north of the river who had nice properties were worried that it was going to be their own building stained by all this gritty soot and sulphurous fumes and Lord knows what else. So there was an awful lot of objections from north of the river.
In response, London Power Company developed a revolutionary technique. Wet filters would wash the sulphur from the black smoke, turning it white.
And when you passed by, especially coming out of Victoria Station on a train, you would see this big building puffing clouds up into the sky. It wasn't a machine for generating smoke or soot. It was actually a very clean power station, and in its day it was one of the most efficient in the world. What came out of those great chimneys were clouds.
Because the filters ran the full length of the building, chimneys could only be at the 4 corners, creating the station's iconic shape. Finally, a top-flight architect, Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, was engaged to give the exterior something of a polish.
He skinned it in beautiful, high-crafted English bricks. He gave fluted Roman columns, the chimneys, instead of just industrial exhaust pipes. And he gave the thing a sort of an elegance and a magic it would never have had without him.
1938. I was 18, working at Greenwich Power Station, and we had to go to Battersea Power Station to examine a turbine which drove a feed pump. When I saw the power station so closely, I'd seen it from a distance, but now I could see the tremendous size and wonderful stacks with white smoke. I thought that was something great. I hadn't seen anything like that in all my life. I was so amazed with the sight.
The massive doors of Battersea Power Station were bronze doors with a carving depicting energy on them.
And a brass knob the size of a Jaffa orange. It takes 2 hands to open it. You go inside. Oh, it's magnificent.
The control room, believe it or not, was panelled with Italian marble. And not only that, anyone who worked in the control room